Geek Myths, a novel about life, love, and the pursuit of sonic screwdrivers. Available in paperback and Kindle edition from Amazon.
Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog Podcast, yet another one in our exciting world of 2020 Houndsite. Yes, I know it's not a great name for a project, but it is true. Now, last time we dealt with the very exciting Neverland, which bizarrely marked the end of the Paul McGann run. Now, we'd hardly even touched on that during this 20-year thing. We were bang on in 2002. Then, because that was release number 33, we had release number 33 and a half. That was the Maltese Penguin. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a character called Frobisher who is a penguin. Yeah, you heard right. He's a penguin. Well, he's actually a shape-changing race called a whiffledrill. Now, shape-changing works really well on audio because you don't have to actually, pay for it. You just do a bit of a sound effect and that's it. If memory serves, he was voiced by the bloke who did one of the corporals from Battlefield. But that was kind of a special release, which brings us to what for some people is the greatest of all big finishes. Release number 34. I know, we're at release number 251 as I record this. But release number 34 is Spare Parts. The story that was absolutely not ripped off in order to make that first Cyberman story of the new Doctor Who run. No. This is better. This is darker. This also fits really well with the stuff that's just happened with the Capaldi Doctor. Then there's Ish, and the Rapture, and the Sandman. All dark, twisted, Sixth Doctor-y type stories. And then we come to, the Church and the Crown. You see, we've still got that character of Erimem that's brought interest from the Eye of the Scorpion. Church and the Crown is historical, but it's also, Doctor Who does the Three Musketeers. It's a much beloved storyline. The Fifth Doctor was definitely having a great run around now. We've got Bang a Bang a Boom. I know. That is great. As a lot of people around sort of this time listen to Bang a Bang a Boom because, there's that thing, the Eurovision Song Contest. Now, I know that some people out there obviously voted for Brexit in order to get us out of the Eurovision Song Contest, but that just wasn't going to happen. Ha ha ha, very funny. It's not the greatest of stories, but what it really isn't Doctor Who does the Eurovision Song Contest. That's what it is on the first layer. What it really is Doctor Who does Deep Space Nine, does Babylon 5. These were the things that were in people's consciousness at the time. It's a cracking great story. Check that one out. No Place Like Home. We've got Jubilee. Jubilee is the story that is even cited as heavily influencing the Dalek story, written by Rob Shearman. But for me, Jubilee's a better story because it's darker and it's got more right-wing politics and the Daleks are more true to their nature and they're being tortured. But Jubilee works on a completely different level to just Dalek. So much so that I don't like to think of them even remotely as connected. Then you've got Necromantia and The Dark Flame, both of which are stories that kind of flicker in your memory and then, they're not things I remember. Hurtling towards the one I'll be reviewing this time comes past Doctor Who and the Pirates. This one divides fans, something rotten. It's Bill Oddie, one of the goodies, playing a pirate, and it's a musical. Now, years ago, I met Colin Baker, and he was working at the Theatre Royal in Newcastle, and I deliberately not tried to show myself up by not interviewing him, by not running him to a corridor, by not talking to him or any of these things. But then people realised what a huge Doctor Who fan I was, and they engineered for me to go and help. They didn't engineer it on purpose. What happened was he was due to be interviewed in Radio Newcastle, and I had to be, well, his sat-nav to get him there through the one-way system that is Newcastle. This is way, way back. And when we're in the car, I just say, can I just put my cards on the table? I'm a huge fan. Because, it's Colin. I am a huge fan. And we talked about this particular story. We only had a couple of minutes left of the journey. He was, of course, charming. He was Colin Baker. But he did tell me that this story, this Doctor Who and the Pirates, came before the story that he was actually doing. He was in Pirates of Penzance. Now, Doctor Who, the musical, puts a lot of people's backs up. It makes them very cross. It makes them all crotchety, and they go, there shouldn't be a Doctor Who musical at all. This fits so well because it's not a musical. What it is, it's an episode of Doctor Who that happens to deal with the concepts of storytelling. That's what it is. One of the episodes happens to be a bit of a musical, and that's what people are fixated on. But experiencing this afresh, come back, don't go in judgy. Don't go in with other people's ideas. Decide for yourself. It might not be what you want. It won't be the best Doctor Who story you've ever heard, but it's different. And if that's its only crime, then I'm sorry. I'm going to let that one go. Creatures of Beauty, 5th Doctor Nyssa, I believe. But again, it's one of those memory cheats things. Then you've got Project Lazarus. Now, that one is ringing a bell, because that's got the Forge. That's got the groundwork. That's got werewolves. And that's something that'll be talked about elsewhere in another podcast, because I'm talking about mags. Which brings us, marvellously, to a story I'm very, very pleased exists here, Flip Flop. Here's the trailer.
Doctor Who, Flip Flop.
Greetings, citizens of Puxatornee. I would like to wish everyone a jubilant Christmas. Any humans found on the streets will be prosecuted. Fatally.
This is the only planet in the galaxy where you can find leptonite crystals.
Leptonite?
Quarks are highly allergic to leptonite, Mel.
Do not move. If you attempt to escape, you will be shot with the stun pistol. Are they moving, Sight Guide Potter?
No, they're standing quite still, Master. They've put their hands up and everything.
So we get the crystals, nip back to the Pinto, and quell the quarks.
I've loved you. I've always loved your body. Let me unwrap it.
It is my duty to serve my president in any way I can. To the fullest extent of my abilities.
Did you see their machine?
This blue box. It turned up out of nowhere.
It makes sense.
Stewart and Reed are in league with the Doctor and Mel, and I ordered them to go back to the Professor's laboratory.
And who might you be?
Didn't you hear the warning about the enemy agents?
Why?
We're them.
Greetings, citizens of Puxatornee. I would like to wish everyone a somber Retribution Day. Anyone found outdoors will be reprimanded. Fatally.
Right. Now, back against that wall, or I will be forced to show you exactly how armed and dangerous we are.
Flip Flop is an incredibly interesting and notable work. I am so glad I'm getting to review it here because obviously this happened some time ago. I mean, this is 2003. It exists in two forms. Let me explain. When you got the CDs, you got two CDs. You got one called Black and one called White. They weren't part 1 and part 2. The whole point was that these stories fed into each other. They were the single most timey and wimey of all Doctor Who stories. The first disc, we'll call it disc Black, but you could swap this for disc White, you listen to. And halfway through the narrative, it switches in time and goes back in time, and the future is changed. ending of narrative. The second disc, you're probably with me, plays out the way that the first disc did, and they want to change history because everything's so awful. So they time travel and they fix things, resulting in the narrative structure that feeds into part black. You can, of course, listen to these the other way around because you start with the narrative in part white, which then switches halfway through and becomes the narrative of part black. Things are awful on the planet because it's going to be invaded by the Slithergee, or it's not going to be invaded by the Slithergee. Both of these end badly. The only thing I've got against this story, well, I've got a couple of things against this story, and I'll go into those in a moment. But you've got the Seventh Doctor and you've got Mel. There are some brilliant Melisms, things where she's always stating where she is. Now, that's not just a narrative structure for the audio. This is really important for the structure of the piece. It's time travel. You must concentrate. You can't just have this on in the background because you'll start going, I've heard this before. Now, it's not a very easy writer's job where they've just handed the same script in twice. Oh no, by any stretch of the imagination. This is a monumental piece of narrative structuring. Jonathan Morris has given us a great piece of Doctor Who-ness. If you're out there and you're wondering about going back or not particularly enjoying the Seventh Doctor's time or even being a bit anti-Mel, we've all been there, I'll forgive you, then I suggest you track this down because this is a great story. The issues are, this story, although it needs the Doctor's TARDIS in order to time travel and fix things, in both versions of the tale, doesn't really need the Doctor in many respects. Because in History version 1, something awful happens, and something awful is still the status quo at the end, in a kind of a soap opera kind of a way. The Doctor can't make things better. The Doctor thinks he's going to make things better by letting himself take care of the problem, which is what he does at the end of both discs. Because this is a side story into a Quark story which happens off camera. It's incredible to think that this is a Doctor Who story where not everyone lives, where things go badly and things still go badly at the end and they go wrong in a different way each time. It was explained to me at university that the important thing of postmodernism and memes and the like, they all change their names. Basically, the enjoyment the audience receive is from knowing the in-jokes. They feel superior. Well, that's kind of where Doctor Who enjoyment comes from for a lot of people. But here, on the second and third listen to, and trust me, you will do this, you see more and more layers and more events that happen because of the stuff on the other discs. It feeds into itself and it is so well written. I believe if you compare the scripts, there is like one line that exists in both scripts. They are both Doctor Who fully functional stories, and the only problem is the Doctor doesn't save the day, because if he saved the day, then there wouldn't be disc white or disc black to follow on from disc black or disc white. Does that make sense? I think so. Worthy of note also is that if you pick up the new audio adventures, this is the Benjamin Cook book. On page 201, you've got a review of Flip Flop. And on page 212, you've got a review of Flip Flop. It's brilliant because you start thinking, I've read this before, which is exactly the experience you get when you listen to this. If you're open-minded to new narrative formats and structures, this is a great story. It truly is. You've got time travel used to perfection. You've also got it used in a way that you just don't see anywhere else outside, say, a short story. This plays to the format perfectly. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, nip back and get it. Yes, it might disappoint you in the way that the Doctor doesn't save the day, but you know what? The Doctor can't save the day every time. It just doesn't work like that. So with that, I'll fade away and let you get on with something else. So until next time, be seeing you. On Saturday the 30th of August 2019, the return of Hooverville. Guests announced so far: Ingrid Oliver, Osgood; Sophia Miles, Madame Pompadour; Nabil Shaban, Syl; Christopher Ryan, Lord Kiv; and General Stahl in the Sontarn Stratagem; Edward Russell, formerly Doctor Who brand manager; Rob Ritchie, 3D animator and the Macra Terror, Keith Barnfather from Real Time Pictures, Chris Chapman, Doctor Who van producer, James Burgess, model maker on Mission to the Unknown remake. Sponsored guests include Michael E. Bryant, director, and Simon Fisher Becker, who played Dorian Multivar. Some guests are still to be announced, so keep an eye on the website. And tickets are available from the Derby Quad's website. See you there. That was the Doctor Who Tin Dog Podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo, and across the internet. Doctor Who and its associated properties are all copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Why not become a supporter by visiting patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.